Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that got everybody confused, and that's the founding population of America versus the population of people that came via the Bering Strait. Now, of course, schooling in mainstream science, I have you believe that today's Native Americans are the descendants of the first Americans. But as you'll see in this video, that's just not true. Mainstream science, I have you believe that all modern humans originated in Africa and left Africa about 50,000 to 90,000 years ago, which is also false. As you'll see, America is the oldest continent, and it has been populated for hundreds of thousands of years prior to so-called modern humans leaving Africa.
Bizarre evidence seems to have been well documented, yet the general public and many within the scientific community are unaware of these controversial finds. The question is, why haven't we heard of these discoveries before?
Oh, I think we're talking about a massive cover-up. As I said, over the past 150 years, these archaeologists and anthropologists have covered up as much evidence as they've dug up, literally.
Basically what you find is something we call a knowledge filter. This is a fundamental feature of science. It's also a fundamental feature of human nature. People tend to filter out things that don't fit, that don't make sense in terms of their paradigm or their way of thinking. So in science, you find that evidence that doesn't fit the accepted paradigm tends to be eliminated. It's not taught, it's not discussed, and people who are educated in scientific teachings generally don't even learn about it.
Conventional theory states that modern man originated in southern Africa around 100,000 years ago. From there, he migrated north into Europe and southern Asia, continued through Asia, and crossed the Bering Strait into the New World around 30,000 years ago. He then came down through North America and finally arrived in South America around 15,000 years ago. Yet numerous artifacts have been found across North and South America that are so old they threaten to completely overturn this theory. According to geologist Virginia Steen McIntyre, she was silenced at the height of her career because of her determination to report the facts. In the summer of 1966, a collection of stone tools, including this leaf-shaped spear point, was uncovered at Hueyatlico, Mexico. To find out exactly how old the spear points were, a team of experts from the United States Geological Survey was called in to date them.
When we first began to work on the Hueyatlico site, we thought we had an old site. This was back in '66, and we thought it was perhaps 20,000 years old, and at that time that was considered a very old age for the site. We did what they call radiometric dates, which gives an actual date range. And we used two different methods to do that. One was using uranium atoms, another one was using little zircon crystals. When we finally got the dates and all the different methods we used to date it, it came out to be 250,000 years old. To tell you the truth, I would have been happy with a 20,000-year-old date. It would have made my career. It was very old for the time, but it wasn't so old that it was that controversial. People can take 20,000-year steps. They can't take steps that are over 200,000 years at one time. And I was rather naive. I thought, okay, we've got something big here, but I'm just going to stick with the date. We've got the information, we got the facts, let's get the facts out and go on from there. And I didn't realize it was going to ruin my whole career.
According to Dr. McIntyre, because she stuck to the facts, all of her professional opportunities were closed off. She's not worked in her chosen field since. The site was closed and permission for further investigation was denied forever.
It's not necessarily a deliberate conspiracy in the sense of some people getting together in a smoke-filled room and saying, we're going to deceive people. It's something that happens automatically within the scientific community. So when a given piece of evidence disagrees with the predominant theory, then automatically people won't talk about it, they won't report it, and that means that science fails to progress in the way that one would hope.
Starting off, we're looking at the oldest craton on Earth. A craton is a rock that's usually found in the Earth's tectonic plates. In 1999, the oldest known rock on Earth was dated to a little bit over 4 billion years ago, and it was found in northwestern Canada. I'm showing you the oldest known rock on Earth because soil is formed from rock. and soil is one of the components used to sustain our life on this planet. Indeed, soil, unlike sterile bits of rock or sand, serves as a natural medium for the growth of land plants. Identifying our planet's oldest soils, therefore, is of critical importance to scientists who study Earth's formative period in the emergence of our planet's first organisms. First meaning original or aboriginal. The new study led by University of Oregon geologist Greg Redelack and Old Dominion University geologist Nord Noth describes a tantalizing new rock outcrop in Isua greenstone belt of southwestern Greenland that, quite possibly, contains our planet's oldest dirt and by consequence, the oldest traces of life on the planet. But for those of you who do not know, Greenland is a part of North America. It's not actually dirt. It's a substance known as paleosoil, former soil that's been packed tightly into rock. After collecting the rocks and analyzing them in a lab, researchers dated the samples at 3.7 billion years old, which if confirmed, would make it the oldest known dirt on the planet. Prior, the oldest known paleosoil was found in Australia's 3.5 billion year old Panorama Formation. Now I've showed you the oldest rock and soil, so now I'm going to show the oldest water and forest and tree. Now we're looking at this article from IFL Science. This dates to June 14th, 2023, so it's really not that old. A geologist found the oldest water on Earth, and then she tasted it. The water had been there for over 2 billion years and contained traces of life. In 2016, geologists studying a Canadian mine made an incredible discovery. At a depth of about 3 kilometers or 1.8 miles, they found flowing water, which tests revealed to be between 1.5 billion and 2.64 billion years old. Having been isolated for all this time, it was the oldest water that had been found on Earth. And remember, this was found in Canada. The oldest rock was also found in Canada. Canada is a part of North America. Now, on to the oldest tree in the world, which they call Methuselah. The Great Basin bristlecone pine has been deemed the oldest tree in existence, reaching an age of over 5,000 years. We're looking at this article from Binghamton University. It says the first trees preserving the world's oldest forest in upstate New York. Charles Verstraeten, curator of sedimentary rocks at the New York State Museum, stood on a crumbling stone of an old quarry when his eye caught a pattern. In 2009, he was scouting out the area with colleagues Linda Van Ayler-Hernick and Frank Manalini for a potential field trip. Nothing unusual, since paleobotanists have been visiting the former highway department property since the 1960s. The famous Gilboa fossil forest, discovered a century ago, is a short jaunt up the road from Cairo, New York, and I believe that's the second oldest forest in the world, which is also in New York. Something seemed out of place, his trained eye spying wandering gutters in the stone, a feature common to marine rocks. But even in the Middle Devonian period, the swath of land that one day became Cairo wasn't at the bottom of the sea, meaning it was habitable land. He traced 11 of the lines to a single point and then realized what they showed: the roots of an ancient and very large tree at a time when forests were still new in the world. By tracing root impressions, the researchers they found out that the tree was 2 million years older than the one in Gilboa. The Gilboa site was first dubbed the world's oldest forest in the 1920s, courtesy of the New York State Museum's Winifred Gold Ring. The ancient forest in Cairo is slightly older than the one in Gilboa, at 387 million years old. If you watched my last video, I brought up this source from the Canadian Museum of History, which talked about at the height of the last ice age, glacial ice covered all of Canada, Europe, and Asia. And the Beringia Strait was ice-free because it was dry. It goes on to say, Archaeological evidence suggests that people had spread across Beringia from northeastern Asia into unglaciated portions of Alaska and the Yukon Territory sometime before 18,000 years ago, meaning before the ice melted, they were in the Yukon Territory. Now this is the most important part. It says people may have also been living elsewhere in North America south of the glacial ice at this time, an issue that continues to be highly debated by archaeologists today. And the only reason it's being debated is because those are two different people, and the people south of the glacial ice look like me, a so-called Negro. So we're going to look into the descriptions of the people living in the Yukon Canadian Territory and the descriptions of the people living south of that region. The Asiatic or Mongolian race, of a deep yellow color, their hair black, stiff, straight, and rather thin, which goes against what Christopher Columbus said about the American Indians. He said the American Indians had thick, coarse hair like a horse's tail, but he said heads almost square, wide mouths, high cheekbones, small flat noses, flat foreheads, and small eyes. This race comprises the Japanese, Chinese, Mongolians, the inhabitants of Siberia in Europe, Finns and Laplanders in Europe, and the Eskimo Indians in America. And today's Native Americans descend from ancient Siberians, which makes them Asiatic or Mongoloid. And if you watched my last video, I pulled up a source that was talking about how scientists were puzzled over why today's Native Americans don't look more like their supposed ancestors. Their supposed ancestors more closely resemble today's Australasians or the modern inhabitants of Africa. In other words, they were so-called Negroid. The American or Indian race found only in America is of a deep copper color, straight black hair, high cheekbones, eyes black and sunken, large faces and robust bodies. This race comprises all the American Indians except the Eskimo, who belong to the Asiatic race. Now we know today's Native Americans are considered Asiatic, so these Americans and today's Native Americans are not the same people. We finna look into a voyage of discovery into the South Sea and Bering Straits to see what this explorer saw when he came to America. The physiognomy of these Indians is ugly, stupid, and savage. Otherwise, they are well-formed, tolerably tall, and of a dark brown complexion. The women are short and very ugly. They have much of the Negro in their countenance, only that a Negro head may be called handsome in comparison with theirs. They are principally distinguished from the Negroes by their very long, smooth, and coal black hair. And countenance means facial features. So he's telling you that these Indians, they look like a Negro. They look like so-called black people. Maybe because they are. I would love to see a Native American today who isn't mixed with so-called black people have the countenance of a so-called Negro. Now I'm about to show a few pictures clearly depicting the two different groups of people here in the Americas. Looking at this, you'd say that that man surely does have the Negro in his countenance, meaning he looks like a black man in the face. But would you say that about that woman, that she looks like a black woman? What about this couple? Does both of them look Asiatic or only one of them? I won't give my opinion, I'll let you answer. What about this couple? Do they both look like they're from Siberia? Do they both look Asiatic or Mongoloid? Do they both have Negro in their countenance and their facial features?
That to me is a Negroid face that has all the features you associate with a Negroid face. The proportions of the face, it doesn't say anything about it being a Mongoloid.
Was this then the face of a first American?